Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's CX Quick Tips. Oh, man, I have one of those people who I just love having conversations with because I get different perspectives, and goodness for me, I know I need to get that. So these CX Quick Tips are only 10 minutes in length, so we're going to get right into a discussion. But before we do that, let's welcome Kate Brouse. Kate, welcome.
Thanks. I love talking with you, Jim.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. And we get to share it, which is even more fun. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a particular topic that affects us today, and then absolutely going forward. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And that is the labor crisis. Some of you may not be in that situation in regards to labor, but many of us are, and it's continuing to carry on. Seems like it's going to be with us for a long time. So but we can solve that labor crisis problem if we change the way that we perceive certain things in our strategy. By using inclusion. So Kate, we're celebrating Customer Service Week this month. And there's also something else that we should be celebrating as well that will actually help with that labor shortage or that crisis. If you could, please tell us what we should be celebrating this month as well.
Well, like you said, we just wrapped up Customer Service Week in the first week of the month, and that was great. I know here at NTI, we did some great things to highlight our agents and the great service that they provide. But in addition, some people don't realize that the entire month of October is a month that we set aside to celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Obviously, that is a mouthful, so most people just shorten that to NDEAM. So it's a time to spotlight NDEAM, and this year's theme in particular is America's recovery, powered by inclusion. And I think if companies really stop and just take a second to think about what does that really mean? Can we recover by being inclusive? I think that many companies will find that they can fix some of the labor shortages that they are experiencing if they are willing to open their doors to inclusion. And that involves people within the disability community as well, Jim.
But there's things that prevent people from, actually, going and taking advantage of those opportunities. So if you think about, filling those open positions, what are some of the things that you're seeing that beyond the sheer numbers? Because you can actually look at the unemployment numbers and those seeking work, and it's really not that far off, right? I mean, it really isn't. So you could say, okay, well, what do I need to be doing differently to take advantage of those people who are looking for positions? But there's one big hurdle that oftentimes those folks within the labor force can address. If you could talk about that, I think that'd be great.
Well, I think one of the big hurdles is skills gaps. And the thing is that when companies are more inclusive and they open their doors to a larger population, they may be able to find people within those populations that have the skills that they're seeking that they might not have really thought of before, in terms of, well, let's think that we might have the perfect agent that would come from such and such a background. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But the other thing is that people within the disability community in particular tend to have some crazy mad skills when it comes to adapting and learning. And so even if they don't have the skills that you are seeking right out of the box, they can quickly get there. And they tend to be very goal oriented and driven, those that think that customer service is a good fit for them anyway. And so if you can reach those people who are seeking employment within the disability community that want that customer service work, they are really likely to have that drive. They tend to have additional empathy because of what they've been through. And like I said, if you give them that opportunity to start a little bit lower than what you might want with their skills, you will find that they very quickly get up to speed. There was a great study that was done at Unilever that showed exactly that the agents that came in with disabilities, as they started, had a longer average handle time than normal, but within 6 to 8 months, they had increased or decreased rather their average handle time, so that it was now better than those agents who had been on the job the same amount of time that they were, but did not have a disability.
And there are a lot of case studies associated with what you're talking about. But I think it's important for us to really talk about, what people think, in regards to, including, people with disabilities as part of their candidate pool. And that is, the reality is that there is a vast array of different levels of disability. And I'll give you an example.
Yes.
So my wife is disabled, and we've been married for almost 30 years, and she was in a car accident when she was 8 years old. And so she is actually in a mini adult wheelchair, and she's a paraplegic and has, a lot of ability in regards to transferring. She doesn't need, grab bars and wide doors and all those things. So like when we go to travel, a lot of times things aren't designated, as, ADA accessible, but yet they work for us. And there's also instances where people say, oh yeah, it's accessible, but it isn't.
Right.
So I think there's a whole lot of just sheer innocent unknowing in regards to disability and how that's defined. Maybe you can help shed some light on that.
Well, I think you're right. And many times companies are worried about the accommodations that they are required to provide under ADA law. But the reality is that most accommodations are very simple and cost $500 or less. Many of them cost nothing at all, like just being able to be flexible with scheduling or to offer split shifts or micro shifts. At NTI, we help people connect with contact center agents that need to work remotely. That's an accommodation that prior to COVID, many contact centers said, no way, we can't offer remote work. And now I don't think there's any that aren't offering it at some level. Some of them are going to go back full time, but there are many that are going to stay fully remote or offer that hybrid solution. That's just one example of when you're willing to think outside that box. Companies that a year ago said, or 18 months ago, nope, that remote model will never work. And now they're like, well, yeah, absolutely it can. So if talent teams and organizations are willing to think creatively, think outside the box, which is a skill that the disability community has, you'll be able to think of ways that you can offer more flexibility to your workers. And therefore you will be able to attract a different kind of population or people that weren't interested in the past because they couldn't get what they needed at the jobs that you were currently offering.
So if you could, you started talking a little bit about it, the case study impact. What are some of the other things that contact centers could expect, when they actually change their strategy, open up their mind, and are more mindful of including, well, disabilities as part of their candidate pool, in a multitude of different ways. And it's not just contact centers. There's also some back office work and some things like that. What could they expect
Absolutely.
as far as a benefit or value?
Well, the one that is going to interest most organizations is that the studies do bear out that companies who are more inclusive, including of the disability community, make more money. People who have disabilities have money to spend and they have insane loyalty. And so if you are a company who is inclusive, the people that work for you share that and they become your clients and customers as well. And so that benefit to the bottom line is great. But the other thing, Jim, that some companies don't think about is overall people within the disability community tend to have lower attrition than average. And that simply is because, we think it's because when you have a disability, you already have a lot to manage. And when you have a job that's working well for you, you're not as likely to job hop for, an increase of 25 cents or more by working for one organization or another. You've found what you're good at, you like it, and it's one thing that you don't have to worry about managing because you know the skills, you've gained it, and now the attrition levels tend to go drop much lower within the disability community. Like I said, they tend to be really loyal. People within the disability community, they've had usually a hard road hoe. Maybe that's not the best way to say it anymore, but they've had a lot of things that they've had to deal with. And so that ability to have an inclusive employer that they feel has their back is important. And that's the other thing that I would love to just mention is that it's not just lip service. If you are just giving lip service to inclusion, then your employees and the people in the community are going to know. It has to be real. And the people who you are hiring to be those employees, they have to have a seat at the table and a voice that's heard. That's what makes the difference.
And I would dare to say, they're a community that also, shares, information within themselves and outside of themselves. So I know a lot of companies, heavily rely on employee referral programs, and even pay bonuses for that. And, so when you start talking about this particular group that oftentimes is highly skilled, is more loyal, can be higher performing, that's of significant value, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Of course, that's a significant value. The thing is that disability doesn't discriminate. And so you have people from all walks of life that have a disability. And so that community is very diverse in and of itself.
And I actually saw, and I have to share this because I thought it was hilarious. Some guy talked about, the community of the disabled is one of those types of diversity and inclusion groups that anybody can join at any time.
Right. That's very true. I like the way comedian Josh Blue says it. At one point, he was a spokesperson for NTI, and he says, "We're all only one bad bike ride away from joining the disability community."
And for those that don't know, Josh Ballou was actually on America's Got Talent not too long ago as part of this season right here. And I think that's actually where that came from, where he was saying that you're just one bad bike ride away. And at the time, I think he pointed towards Simon Cowell because he had a bad bicycle accident that put him in the hospital and stuff. So, and Simon was like, oh, yeah, that's true. So you never know when, think for me, you may be supporting a group that you'll be part of, sooner, or later. I think at some point we all do. It's just whether or not we get to a ripe old age where we, can't work anymore. And I think that's a key, situation right here, because goodness knows there's a lot of people who have a whole lot of experience who are, up into their 70s that still want to work.
Absolutely. And they are part of the disability community as well, many times. You're right. And, but that just opens it up to not just disabilities, but inclusive companies. They're going to open their doors to those people who are senior, that sometimes can find it harder to find companies willing to give them that chance. But hey, when you open your doors to those underserved communities, you are attracting talent that you were otherwise overlooking. And that's an important point. I just lost your audio.
Kate Brouse, thank you for joining us as well. It's always a good discussion. If you could, please share with Quick Tip listeners how they can get in touch with you.
I am with NTI, and you can email me at kbrouse, that's BROUSE, at nticentral.org.
And Kate is also a frequent contributor to CX Global Media and CX Quick Tips. Kate, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. We wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim.